You look at the person staring back at you in the mirror and you recognize the features, the tired eyes, the familiar posture, yet there is a distinct sense of absence. You feel like a passenger in a life that belongs to someone else. This ghost in the room has been with you since childhood. It watches every compromise you make and every small lie you tell yourself, all in the service of remaining a good person. You silence your own objections to keep the peace. You have built a psychological cage. If you picture your total self as a complete circle, to gain social acceptance, you took your aggression, your darker appetites, and your ambition, cleanly split them from your identity, and locked them away. You believed that by making yourself small, you were making yourself safe. But look at what happens when you discard half of your psychological weight. Without its counterpart to support it, your remaining structure buckles. You are left entirely exposed to the pressures of the world. We often confuse this state of vulnerability with character. We label our inability to defend ourselves as civility or politeness. But a lack of capacity is not virtue. You are not a good person. You are a harmless person. And the sheer, unyielding effort required to maintain that harmless facade is exactly what is draining you empty. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung identified this repressed material as the shadow. It represents everything about ourselves that we find unacceptable, shameful, or completely incompatible with polite society. Think of your consciousness as a grand estate. You have carefully decorated the parlor where your guests arrive, presenting a manicured version of yourself. But to maintain that pristine parlor, you have bolted the door to the cellar. In the damp, unlit parts of your psyche, those discarded traits do not die. A closed psychological system has a strict rule. Whatever you refuse to acknowledge begins to mutate in the dark. When you refuse to acknowledge your capacity for anger, you do not actually become peaceful. You become resentful. That anger ferments, eventually leaking out as passive-aggressive remarks and petty grievances. Similarly, when you suppress your raw ambition because you fear being seen as greedy, it goes underground. It manifests as a subconscious mechanism that quietly sabotages your own professional success. That persistent, heavy fatigue you feel signals a massive internal drain. You are spending every ounce of your available willpower on the exhausting task of holding your own psychological cellar door shut. Repression is a blunt instrument. When you try to cut out a specific bad trait, you inevitably sever the psychological nerves connected to your drive and assertiveness. This collateral damage consumes the golden shadow, the fierce independence, your raw creativity, and sharp humor that were silenced because they were bundled with the traits you tried to discard. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche approached this exact problem from a different angle, focusing on the mechanics of human greatness. He argued that an individual cannot achieve true greatness by attempting to slay the beast within them. Instead, they must learn to consciously contain it. Consider a wolf. A wolf is not evil because it possesses teeth. It is simply a wolf. You too have teeth. If you do not know how to use them, you will spend your life at the mercy of those who do. Reclaiming the shadow turns a source of shame into a source of vitality. Once integrated, it provides the psychological teeth required to set firm, meaningful boundaries in your life. Transitioning from a fractured state to a whole one requires a descent. You must make the conscious, uncomfortable choice to walk back into the unlit places of your mind that scare you the most. The most practical tool for this descent is examining your intense reactions to others. Ask yourself why you feel such a specific, irrational hatred towards certain people and their behaviors. This is the mirror of projection. The traits you despise in others match the exact traits forbidden within yourself. You are hating your exiled shadow. By breaking that mirror, you pull those scattered pieces back, recovering your missing power and restoring your structural integrity. Integration builds complexity, not malevolence. Facing your internal abyss allows you to own your actions with a new sense of gravity, moving beyond the simplistic roles of victim or villain. Because if you look into the mirror and recognize that you are fully capable of cruelty, your decision to be kind finally has moral weight. It becomes a conscious act of will rather than a default state of weakness. To be whole is to be both the light and the dark, held together by a mind that refuses to flinch. When you recognize your total being, your presence occupies space. You no longer have to ask the world for permission to exist.